Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We're back at it on a Thursday night. Bills and Texans here tonight. Lots going on up in sports, and including, of course, the return of LeBron James, and the Lakers just looked so good against the Utah Jazz. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever. And however you may be watching or listening live from Denver, wherever you may be and however you may be watching or listening, thanks for making us part of your evening. Lots to talk about, including the welcoming of James Franklin into Virginia Tech. We'll talk a lot about that. There's lots to discuss about it, but I want to start off with this game. We got a great list of guests up here for us. Chuck Fisher, big up on wrestling. We're going to be talking a lot about WWE and mostly all what's happening up on some big storylines. I'm excited about that. And Dominique Curry, former NFL receiver. We're going to be talking a lot about the Rams and the Lions and mostly about special teams. I'm really excited about it. So tonight's game, it's going to be an interesting one only because of a few things. I love Josh Allen, and the Bills offense does continue to be overpowering, but it's mostly overpowering because when you've got Josh Allen on your side and you have to basically put the ball in his hands, many, many different magic wonders are going to happen. However, you are coming up against a defensive, physical team like the Texans. It's not going to be that simple and easy, and you're on the road in Houston, so that's going to be one of the other question marks that we have. Buffalo this year, as much as I like with what Josh Allen has done, the defense in the last few times all throughout this season has scored up more than 25 points against their opponents. So I'm not saying that Buffalo altogether has to be a shutdown defense, but you can admit last week against Tampa, and you're in a short week in Houston, you needed to end up shutting down that offense. And Baker Mayfield and company getting 32 points on that defense is often times where it leaves me questioning about Sean McDermott more than anything else. Because remember, Sean McDermott, I made this point, he's the modern day Marty Schottenheimer for a few reasons. Because not only is it that you've had your long tenure being here in Buffalo after the whole debacle in New England with Bill Belichick and the rest of their whole entire personnel, but you can't even draft. That's one of the hardest parts. So New England has had to deal with an entire purgatory this whole time with not drafting skill players, Bill Belichick getting after Robert Kraft, and the whole it's like two angry men there. And Buffalo, you needed to take advantage of this. And right now, last year, they went into the AFC Championship and they lost to Kansas City. But once again, Kansas City has shown that they can face off against adversity at any time. This is a different chapter now. You're watching Baltimore be revived on their defense in the last 4 weeks because they've only given up 15 points or less since the Alohi Gilman trade. And you've got other teams in the AFC that are also fighting for their chances to at least claim bragging rights. As much as I love the Denver Bronco defense, offensively, I don't even know what to make of them. Bo Nix gives me question marks, but even though, all the receivers are really good. Now, it is unfortunate that J.K. Dobbins is out for the season, but that's kind of the reality that you're in. You're in a whole entire mixture here. So for Buffalo tonight, I feel Buffalo could take this game, but defensively, Houston is not going to make it that easy. Defensively, they're going to want to get after the quarterback. They're going to want to end up playing physical football. The secondary is going to want to play shutdown, and Keon Coleman's a healthy scratch. And then not to mention, they just shut down one of their receivers, and they've elevated Gabe Davis, a familiar name. So Buffalo, I think, should be able to win this game, put it in the bag, put it all away. But not going to be that simple, not even going to be that easy. All right, so I got a very special guest, and I don't talk about it a whole lot up and onto the show, but it's always fun when I get a chance to kind of mix some things up. But listen, I've grown up at least, a little bit of a wrestling fan. I mean, I love Stone Cold, loved Eddie Guerrero, rest in peace. I loved a lot of really great stories, but John Cena has been the big story. You know what I mean? Because the Monday Night Raw, the last one of his career, was incredible. There's lots of storylines to talk about. So joining us, talking all about it, big fanatic, and also breaking down all the storylines. You can catch him up on YouTube under the Joker's voice. Chuck Pfister joins us here. Well, let's start right there. Monday Night was arguably, I love John Cena. The minute he came into the scene, and the minute that he came in and, his whole script, the kind of wrestler that he was, and what it gave to a lot of people was just immaculate. And then we come up to this point where Monday Night Raw, the last and final one of his career, I thought was outstanding. Like,
it was a good show.
Is there anything that you may have bring up, like some reminiscence when we think about John Cena? Because to me, I'm going to miss him up and onto the ring. But I think it's been coming to that point because sometimes wrestlers, they just feel it in their bodies.
Right.
But initially, you kind of want to end this in a great, like an immaculate story in the end.
Right. And this is kind of where, in my personal opinion, the WWE has kind of fumbled this entire year, winning the Elimination Chamber, doing the heel turn on Cody Rhodes, which led to a real bad storyline that didn't exactly play out like it was supposed to. Thanks a lot, Dwayne Johnson. To a very lackluster main event at WrestleMania, which led to a 5-month heel run, which really went nowhere. It's since the turn back to babyface at SummerSlam that we've been starting to see these better matches come in. I think highlighted by the event Crown Jewel down in Australia, the match with AJ Styles, where it was just an homage by AJ to people he worked with TNA by doing certain signature moves. He was doing Chris Angel's Angel Wings. He did the finishing move by Frankie Kazarian. When John Cena hit Sister Abigail onto AJ Styles and the tribute to Bray Wyatt, and when the fans got their lights out and the fireflies were out, and even John had to take a moment and just take that moment in, look up, kind of recognize Bray. As someone who was a huge Bray Wyatt fan and everything he did with the Wyatt family, the Firefly Funhouse, that was a big moment for me. Now, going into his final episode on Raw, Madison Square Garden, a week before he faced off with Dominique for the Intercontinental Championship at TD Gardens, his hometown. We get the what's going to happen next. He's going to have a rematch with Dominic at Survivor Series next weekend, the 29th in San Diego, Dominic's hometown. And we're going to, what should happen is Dominic should go over and get the IC title back. That takes us into Saturday night's main event, December 13th, Washington, D.C., for his final match. Now, one thing we've known about John Cena over the years, he's never really lobbied for anything. He's never politicked to work with someone, get a certain match, get a certain result. But for his final appearance as an in-ring performer, he wanted this to be main roster, showcasing the talent of NXT.
Yeah.
So we had their tournament, which I was a little upset. 16 people going across all the brands, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, only picked one person from NXT to be in the tournament. Why bother at that point? But his final match, the winner of the tournament should be Gunther. He's already retired. Gunther's already retired Goldberg. And I think this is going to be part of Gunther's gimmick going forward. Whereas Randy Orton was the legend killer, Gunther is going to be the career ender.
Yeah. No, this is going to be an interesting storyline, in my opinion. I think, I think it's kind of fitting, right, to be up in DC. I mean, the fact of I remember watching a lot of his, movie skids like The Marine. It makes a lot of sense, and I'm just so I think it would truthfully be the icing on the cake that really ends up, his storyline. Because again, I remember being there watching the whole entire live stream when, Taker was announcing his retirement, and then the way that the story was for him was just hearing the bells chime and
one last time,
so much that I could honestly just remember of just how cold it felt, but so exciting that it was at the same time. So I know that there's obviously going to be another match too that's going to involve, Roman Reigns and the Usos and, just the whole entire group war. And so, yeah. And so this is actually kind of interesting because I think it's being jam-packed. I mean, Brock Lesnar being up and in the middle of it. Mm-hmm. I do like those really hardcore, intense face-offs because at that point, with how they were with, the Usos and even with Roman Reigns. How do you kind of prospect this to be? Because I know these are two real good toe-to-toes, and I think this is going to be interesting to watch on both ends, how everything's going to end up on the match.
Okay, the men's War Games match. This is going to be Plan B because Plan A involved Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins injured his shoulder at also at Crown Jewel for the Crown Jewel Championship. Injured his shoulder. He had surgery on it the following Monday. So the plan was always for Seth Rollins, Bronson Reed, and Braun Breaker to be this one big faction on Raw running amok, and then to have an all-star group opposing them with a few added mixtures in there. Yeah. So right now, with Seth out, you kind of had to, okay, how do we make this work? We still got Braun Breaker. We still got Bronson Reed. They're led by Paul Heyman. Brock Lesnar, through the loose association with Paul Heyman, is in this match now. And then how did you get Drew McIntyre in? Because Drew McIntyre's on SmackDown.
Yep.
So you did the storyline suspension. Paul Heyman shows up on SmackDown with a contract in his hand or something and says that, I can, for my War Games team, I can bring anybody from any brand. Drew McIntyre comes out the week after he got suspended, and he's like, I can take anyone I want. I can take anyone I want. So you add Drew McIntyre. Now you add Cody Rhodes onto the babyface side.
Yep.
You had Logan Paul doing some beef with CM Punk. And now you've got on paper, the dynamics work. Roman and Punk obviously have history with Heyman after what happened at WrestleMania. Yep. The Usos, Breaker, and Bronson Reed, that makes sense there. Brock Lesnar's kind of the history between Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns is well documented. And then Cody and Drew. So, excuse me. So that's a pretty good story dynamic. And this has been the pattern of WWE, at least as far as the men's War Games matches. It's been at least a faction running amok, and a group of individuals have to come together to try and take them down. The women's side, that's a whole nother ball of wax. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because my biggest thought about it is, and I've watched the documentary behind, the company itself.
Oh, and, unreal.
Yeah. It was incredible because of the fact of just the timeline that it was in at the time. And then for it to, because again, I grew up in an era where it was the Attitude Era. It was amazing. But then you start thinking about, the future. You start thinking about, with the future of AEW, the future of the NXT, and a lot of these. And my biggest thing is that even though I try to mix nostalgia, but at the same time, I want to be able to have some young bloods in here. I want to be able to get some young, new talent. Now, I know this has been quite a transition in work that Triple H has been trying to do for a long time because of how delayed we were. When you think about the future of at least the company itself, like, do you think that eventually, like, we have great stars, but do you eventually see this to where Triple H is looking at the future and going, hey, we need new younger blood. We need new younger talent for both men's and women's, and to make it even more exciting to where when you got it up on pay-per-view, I mean, the contracts now with these streaming and media services now,
Huge.
this has to be the chance for them to be able to expand it and to keeping a lot of these storylines exciting, action-packed, and begging for a lot of us consumers to want more.
Well, yeah, and that's been part of the Paul Levesque thing for the last couple of years. I mean, you look at the roster, the main roster now for both SmackDown and Raw, 95% of them came from NXT Black and Gold.
Yep.
There's very few who were outside that system. Right now, NXT, especially on the ladies' side, is just one of the most stacked divisions ever. And actually, NXT women are outperforming NXT men, with one exception. We can get to him in a bit. But right now, when you've got Cena retiring, next year AJ Styles is retiring. It's not going to be much longer until Randy Orton, Sheamus, Rusev, a lot of these people who've come up, who have had these 20-year careers, Attitude Era guys, CM Punk as well. They're going to be starting to retire. So what are we doing to bring the future up? People like Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes over on SmackDown, some of the talent in NXT, and like Javon Evans on Raw in that match with Gunther. He's fun to watch. He's a lot of fun to watch. The ladies down there, you got Sol Ruka, Zarya, Blake Monroe, the former Mariah May from AEW, a former women's world champion. On the main roster now, you got Stephanie Becerra, you got Julia, Roxanne Perez, and the ladies are starting to get better on the main roster, depending on what show you watch. But it's pretty exciting what the future holds. And it all comes down to creative, though, as some folks will love to tell me, well, wrestling's fake, right? I'm like, yeah, so is Game of Thrones. But so it all comes down to creative. What does the writing team do? And right now, Raw is hit or miss sometimes. I don't know what Road Dogg's doing on SmackDown because that show's absolutely terrible. Yeah. That's just my opinion. But as you talked about the streaming, Raw here in the United States is on Netflix. Now, Netflix is in a 10-year, $5 billion deal with the WWE. So they kind of dictate who's going to be on their show. So the roster on SmackDown is not as deep. You get a few key injuries in there, like a Jacob Fatu, a Bianca Belair. Your storylines go, and then your roster is not as deep. So you're having to play plan B, this patchwork stuff, and the show suffers. Yeah. No, and that's one of the biggest things. It's all about consistency, because it's like the more I dig in, I even think about this. I watch series all the time. I just recently had just watched the last episode of Tulsa King. I want to be drawn in the story. Right. The more I get consistent with that, and the more that I get drawn on, I know as a consumer, it was money well spent. And at the same time, it's like, we can watch up a lot because, especially here up in Colorado, you get a bunch of these matches up here as well. And you think about, what is the story leading into? Right. What is that all going to be laid into? Because again, I want to be back up in my hometown in Vegas for WrestleMania or Money in the Bank or even SummerSlam. The last event, I will tell you, the last event I ever been to was in 21 during SummerSlam. And that the best matches I've watched. Edge against Seth Rollins. It was the most amazing one because with Edge coming out to Brood, it was like, oh my goodness, I couldn't even believe my eyes. And the whole crowd is jumping to it. And then watching Cena against Roman Reigns, that had to have been kind of a heartbreaker for some to see that.
but it was still great because it was telling you Roman is him. But what did throw me off was how Brock Lesnar came out of nowhere. And I'm just like, okay, this is a totally different story now. But I feel like we need a little more of that.
And that SummerSlam also started off with a bang because you were going to have a Raw Women's Championship match.
Yep.
It was supposed to be Bianca versus Carmella. Carmella was not cleared medically. All of a sudden, you hear Becky Lynch's music, who had just come back from having her daughter. Right. Massive pop. Massive pop for that.
Yeah, no, that was incredible.
But you mentioned going to the live events. Just from my own experience last year, we had WrestleMania 41 out here in Las Vegas.
Yep.
And I'm not going to lie, I would have loved to have gone to WrestleMania, but I'm not going to spend $800 for a nosebleed seat.
No, no way.
But for NXT Stand and Deliver, it was a little early in the morning on a Saturday, but I'm 9 rows off the ring for $120. I'm like, I'll spend that and I'll invest in the future of the company.
Yeah. No, I agree with you there. I mean, like I said, my hometown up in Vegas, I loved the way that Allegiant Stadium was booming all up and into that night, but for $800 on a nosebleed, give me a break. I ain't even going to be going up through there.
And it's coming back next year, and prices will go up again. Guaranteed.
Of course. Cannot even imagine it. Chuck, I appreciate you for coming on by. I don't do this a whole lot, but this is always a lot of fun of like a twist and turn up on the show. But, I mean, hey, we got a lot of wrestling fans ourselves, and so to add that, I think, you put in another milestone up and in there. So appreciate you coming on by. Love your work up on it. Guys, check him out, The Joker's Voice. If you need to know more about storylines and more of the breakdowns of all your favorite wrestlers and all the wrestling stories, that's where you go to up from there. Chuck, appreciate you for coming on by, man. Enjoy the Thanksgiving with you and your family, and we will definitely see you soon and see what's next of the storylines here in WWE.
Sounds good.
All righty. Well, we're shifting on quick now as we're going right back up and into the NFL, and this is actually a special one. I really am excited about this one. The Rams have been playing red hot, and then at the same time, Detroit, you know how physical that they can get. So to discuss more about what the recent NFL looks so far as we go into tonight with Week 12 on a Thursday night, Dominique Curry is going to be jumping on by here up and onto the show. Let's bring him on in. So, I think about this, Dominique, and all I've seen all coming into Week 12 is that we've got a lot of physical teams up there. And I mean, the best one that I've seen was the Rams and the Seahawks, knowing how, even though it felt like two heavyweight fighters, but one forgot to bring the uppercut, left that at home. And so with Sam Darnold, having the 4 picks that he did, it's unfortunate, but they never stopped the fight. And I think, with the Rams, Stafford's having an amazing season. The way that the trajectory is going for them is like, we're going for it. And if, whatever happens in the end is going to happen, but I think they have more of the chances up for it. So I just think this is the most wide open season for some teams outside of LA and Seattle, that any team could come in the playoffs and any team could wreak havoc in the playoffs if they make it, right?
Oh yeah. It's going to be a competitive end of the season. Just like you said, there's many teams that are bringing havoc. If you think about it, like, even though I played with Detroit, even though I played with the Rams, I'm from Philly. So I'm sitting with the Philly fans on a daily basis. As soon as you walk down the street, you hear "Go Birds." And I do wear my Lions gear, at times to make them a little mad. But just to see how, I would say a few of my teammates, like Stafford was a teammate of mine, to see how he played. When I was leaving the Rams, Golf was coming into the Rams, so I did speak with him a few times, and just to see how they're playing, it's a wide open. I can't name a team that I'm going to say is going to win, because as soon as I do that, they take a tumble or they struggle with the team. For example, the Bills. I've been a fan of the Bills this whole season, but you see how they're struggling, at certain games. So it's wide open. Just like you said, it's very wide open.
Speaking of the Bills, because tonight's game is going to be important for them. Now, obviously, Josh Allen is amazing. He does everything that he does when he's got the football in his hands. The only problem, Dominique, that I'm having a problem with is that the defense this year has had a couple games where they've given up 25 plus points. You're coming off of a week against Tampa Bay and Baker where you let go of 32.
Right.
When you're going to the playoffs and you're facing a physical team like Seattle, maybe like the Rams that are capable of scoring, you're also facing up against, maybe Kansas City again. You do want to be at your absolute best. I love what the Bills are trying to do, but sometimes I look at Sean McDermott and I'm like, you got to at times let go of the reins. Let Josh do his thing, get the run game consistent, and not be so conservative at the worst times when you need to have it. So what should we expect tonight? Because Houston's defense is physical. I'm hoping Josh Allen, whether he's getting a pass or a run in, the offense has to be consistent this way.
Well, actually, I think it's going to be a good game for one. Houston has been, their defense have been stepping up very, very, very good. They play fast, they play physical, but I still think that the Bills will edge them out. To me, even though the defense has their ups and downs, I'm really putting the Bills win on the receivers. The run game is solid. The run game is solid, and I do think that the defense feed off of the way the offense plays as far as instead of being a vice versa. So once Josh Allen come out hot and start making plays, the defense is going to take that intensity and be able to match it against Houston's offense.
I agree. I think Buffalo, this is their chance to take this game away. Now, I'm going to be paying attention to the first half because if it looks ugly, there might be a little bit of trouble. But if it actually looks a little like the start of something and then going into the second half, they got it, I think the Bills will be in good shape. To me with Philly, I've been listening to storylines these last couple of days, and I am just, again, nobody could honestly figure out Philly than Philly themselves. I just look at with this Jalen Hurts thing, because again, it was not a great win when they played Detroit. It was very physical. Detroit, I give them props. They stopped the tush push 4 straight times. But the thing about Philly, the offensive identity is clearly different. Now you are without an offensive lineman. And so Jalen Hurts and company, somebody has to get up and onto the same page because we know the whole A.J. Brown discussion. And then now one of the writers talking about Jalen Hurts making this a Carson Wentz 2.0. I'm like, that's just silly. Come on. Just because it's not looking pretty does not mean Philadelphia is not going to overcome adversities. What do you make of Philadelphia? Because I still believe they're physical. That Jalen Phillips guy that they picked up from Miami, damn, is he looking good. And so that's where I think Philly, they have a fighting chance.
Yeah, I think the offense is just very, very conservative. Obviously, AJ is going to be slightly frustrated because he's had amazing seasons the past couple years. And I think in his career, he's only had 1 year where he didn't have over 1,000 yards. So now that he isn't getting the targets that he wants, it's a little frustrating. And then, it's a business. At the end of the day, as a receiver, you want to produce because the more you produce, when it's time for contract negotiations, you have that leverage to ask for more money. Outside of that, we don't know what stipulations, what riders he has inside of his contracts. Because, to make more money, he may have to get over a certain amount of catches, have over a certain amount of yards, TDs, things like that. And if he's not on pace to get those, you're messing with that man's money. The offense, I say it's very basic because they don't really allow Jalen to let loose. They're making sure that he's getting safe play calls, but he's also making sure that he doesn't turn the ball over. Even before they let the next gen stats out, one thing I noticed about AJ is that it's difficult for him to get open because he run the same routes. We're playing against smart defensive backs, smart physical defensive backs. If us as fans are able to pick up on the type of routes he's running, just imagine him going up against the defensive back that have watched over 30 hours of film, who's watched over years of his technique, his footwork. So they're studying him to the point where they know everything that he's going to do. What I think they need to do is they need to move him around a little bit more so that way he can create mismatches amongst the defense.
I
On
agree.
top of that, stop making him run the same curl routes, comeback routes, and go routes for the most part. Oh, and slants and
Yes.
5-yard ends. Make him run a whip route, make him run a double move, something like that. And what they're doing with Saquon, give Saquon the ball. Stop giving him the ball when we know that we're about to hand it off. So
Mhm.
mixing up that RPO, since we're not using that much and we're not really using it like that, we have to use it because Jalen legs is as dangerous as his arm. So when we're taking away one of those, we're actually putting strain on the offense. They're too dynamic. They're too explosive to not average over at least 25 points a game.
Yeah. You know what's crazy about it is I made this narrative about Jalen Hurts is I feel like he is the ideal like NBA Russell Westbrook improviser of the NFL. Because he can see it. He can improvise when he needs to. Like especially when I watched the week 1 against Dallas. If you know there ain't an opportunity, go run it in. They literally just gifted you that. And he's going to improvise it anyway. And he's athletic for that. That's why it's like it works. So discussing about, the NFC, because, of course, talking about Detroit, there's a lot of teams in the NFC right now. I had this discussion off the air and I love talking with my fans. And the fact of the matter is like, it is what it's going to be. But the ideal is there are about 6 to 7 teams that I feel in these next 6 games, only about a couple of them are going to fight to get in the wild card spot because Green Bay doesn't look like they have an identity. Ben Johnson's cooking in Chicago. It don't look pretty, but it's working. They're not turning the ball over. Their defense is actually stepping up in ways, and they're getting guys back healthy. San Francisco, I don't even know what to make of them with their quarterback situation in the offense, but they got dudes. They got him back. And they're winning without Bosa and with Fred Warner. So with Detroit now, we know that game against Philadelphia, the pat on the back that I can get is that you managed to stop the tush push 4 straight times. You know how to get physical. But what do we need to do better on offense? Because we know Jared Goff is the last standing pocket passer that we know when he's uncomfortable and gets unraveled, it don't look good. But it's also, too, the schemes in which Detroit, they know they have them and they know they work. But in these next 6 games, this is going to be very important for them, right?
Yeah, yeah. One thing is definitely with the weather change. Even though Detroit is cold weather, I mean it gets brutal up there, but they're a dome team. So now they got to make sure that they can show that they can win at these teams where they're playing on that natural grass. Because I will say, from my viewpoint, Detroit looks different when they're in the dome on that turf, or when they're in any dome, as opposed to when they're outside in the natural elements on grass. They don't seem like they seem like they have a step slower. But the one thing that they got to do is that their playmakers got to make plays. If you think about it, throughout the season, all of their playmakers have been doing the thing. They've been able to get the run going with both running backs. They've been able to spread the ball between receivers. Now, when they did that with the Eagles, it was setbacks that messed them up. Like when they scored a touchdown, we got the penalty. You get the penalty that sets you back. Boom, you missed the extra point. Now that just like something that demoralizes the team just a little bit. And when you're playing championship football, those type of mistakes cannot happen. So once they figure it out, like how to sustain their offense on the grass, they're going to be extremely, extremely dangerous.
2 of my final questions. These are fun ones here for you because so you played before this team moved to Los Angeles. You played up in St. Louis. Now, I think about this because we watch the NFL have teams relocate to different cities. And at the same time, we've also watched games go international and even more on a broader scale from London to Munich to Spain and even in Brazil. What was it like in the atmosphere in St. Louis? Because I watched the UFL and watching the St. Louis Battlehawks, and I'm looking at all these diehard fans in this city that they come out, they love football, they want their football. And you think that there might be an open discussion at some point down the road, because we know Roger Goodell is going to be busy with a lot of this. do you think that there should be an open discussion about potentially reviving football back in St. Louis?
I'm gonna say yes and no. The no is because St. Louis is country. Um, it'd be tough to bring another team in and create that atmosphere for that team. Um, but at the same time, I don't see the Rams leaving LA because it's lucrative. I mean, the amazing stadium, obviously the stars that come out there, and then just being the LA Rams, and they're producing and productive and putting out great football. With me being a St. Louis Ram, I do miss having those games in the dome. I'm not gonna lie, I do miss those. But now, since I don't know how many years, almost 10 years removed from,
Yeah.
like it's been a while. I kind of think those Rams fans only kind of want the Rams back if a team comes back. Because with the Battlehawks, yes, they have a slightly good turnout, but it's still not the same feeling as those horns on the helmets running out of there.
Oh man, I can only imagine just the atmosphere, people coming out, tailgates, and in the dome. I mean, that's got to be an incredible scenery. So final question before letting you go, because for you, you have quite the story. You know, you've journeyed around, and I say this for a lot of our audiences because we do have a lot of high schoolers and guys getting ready to go into college. For those that pursue the NFL and they want to get in and have at least a shot, a chance. You've contributed in the best way that you can, and when watching your film and tape, especially as an attacker, physical, get after it, contribute in the best way. I don't think many people on the outside looking in really think about the importance of making the roster as a whole. Many people just look at, well, you got to be up on offense. You got to be up on defense. What about looking at the guy on the special teams? Why not look at some of the guys that are the returners? When you think about that, going to your career, and then especially with these up and coming kids, what's kind of the big advice that you would give to them? To them, if they're feeling like they're on their lows, what's the best way that they can feel on their highs, get into the work on your craft, and do whatever it takes, no matter what the situation may be, to make that roster and make it worthwhile?
That's actually a good question. And when it comes to the NFL, it's an easy answer, but at the same time, it's a difficult answer because you're 1%. You're going against the elite of the elitist or the best of the best when you're in the NFL. And what I tell people is that when I was there, I realized even at the St. Louis Rams, I was surrounded by some of the best wide receivers in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Danny Amendola. I mean, Marty Gilliard, Greg Salas, Austin Pettis, Donnie Avery. If you look at their collegiate stats, all of them were all conference. Marty Gilliard just got inducted to the Hall of Fame at the University of Cincinnati. They all were amazing, amazing receivers. And the one thing I had to figure out was, okay, I'm a pretty solid receiver, but they're paying them. How can I figure out how I'm going to stick around? So the one thing I made sure I did was I assessed what is it that they're not doing that I can do. And that's when I realized that it was special teams. So when people see special teams players, they don't give them that much respect, but they got to realize that during the course of the season, during the course of the year, they have to make the team as a receiver. When you're in OTAs, you can't show how good of a special teamer you are. It's no way because you don't have equipment on. In training camp, you can't show how good of a special teamer you are until and only on game day. So it's like they have to catch the ball. They have to run routes. They are actually good receivers. But to the question that you asked, to the question that you stated, the one way that you got to understand is that there are times where life is going to get hard. And it's not only in sports. It's all across the board. School, out of school. I'm from North Philly, so in the neighborhood, things like that happen. It's all about how you answer that knock at your door. Figure out a way to keep yourself mentally prepared, yourself mentally strong, and emotionally aware. Because there's going to be instances off the field, on the field, in the locker room that can throw you off of your goal. You set your goal. Set your goal very high so that way if you do fall from your goal, you don't fall too far. Set your goal for the NFL. If you don't make the NFL, you still have UFL. You still have other ways to be a professional athlete. And if not, give back to the community because it's nothing like having that former collegiate player, that former high school all-star, that former NFL player back in their hometown, back in their community, feeding back to the kids.
You
That's
know,
the way I can answer that question.
hey, you know what? Listen, and we're in the month of Thanksgiving, and what I'm always thankful for is that I'm very thankful for my family. I'm thankful for, the fact that I'm ready to introduce a new family member. We're 29 weeks in, and so to have that as a first time dad is the best thing ever. But on the show, I'm so thankful to listen to all these great stories because many people don't realize that. And so that's where I'm so thankful to be able to hear them, to be able to showcase them. So many of the youngsters that are out there that want to pursue it know the story, know the gist, and then blaze your own trail. I always will say that. When it comes to my kids growing up, I will always say, I will give you the tools, but blaze your own trail because it is your life. It's your life in your hands. You blaze it how you want to. Dominique, I appreciate you for taking the time, man, and enjoy this Thanksgiving with you and the family, man. It's always the best time. And we will definitely see what now the next storylines will be in these next 6 weeks because it's gridiron time from this point forward. So appreciate it, man. Enjoy it,
Thank
and
you.
we will see you soon.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving, man.
Happy Thanksgiving. There you go. See, the stories like this are always what puts a smile on anybody's face. And I love it so much. And the way that, because it's true, you never really get a chance to hear stories like that. And then, the NFL, I always say, because there are many of the great athletes that have played this game, that have played in this league. And there are many that make it through successfully, and many of them that have tried. They put in their homework. They've done a lot of that, and some of them careers fall short. Some of them, it is what it is. But it is the hardest grind. But that's where people have to realize it's only temporary for now. And all you got to do, what's permanent, is your drive and the striving for your goal. So that's the big part. All right, we're going to take a break here. We're going to talk a little bit more what's going up and onto the news. So don't go anywhere, folks. As we've said, our partners up at Payday Fantasy have been red hot with the NBA, college football. We got a lot to discuss because there are so many different storylines in college football. But Payday Fantasy, we are thankful to have them as our partners all season long, no matter what the sport, NBA, MLB, NHL, NFL, you name it. We're here all 24/7. Payday Fantasy is your go-to player pickup app. And of course, as you know, Thursday night football game tonight, Bills and Texans. Pick the players. Sign up, by the way, before you do anything. Sign up. Free $5 entry. And best of all, 100% deposit match guarantee of up to $100 when you use the promo code SNAKE. That is SNAKE. That is a Thanksgiving gift to you guys for you being the loyal supporters of the show. And you're also checking out arguably one of the best and fun apps on your mobile device. You Google Play in the App Store that you can check out and win big with Payday Fantasy. So check it out. Sign up, get your free entry, $5 right there for you. And using promo code SNAKE for the 100% deposit match of up to $100. Pick the player, pick the outcome, and get paid with Payday Fantasy.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Boy, I absolutely am thankful for all of our great interviews that we have had on the show all week long. It was stacked, and it's only going to continue to grow further and further up from here as we get ready for the short week next week. For Thanksgiving, for all of you and to your family, happy Thanksgiving to all of you wherever you may be. So just earlier, James Franklin ended up getting introduced into Virginia Tech as he is now the new head coach of the Hokies program. So James Franklin, in my opinion, I didn't see this one coming to go into the ACC. One of my biggest things about James Franklin is that he tends to be in his own way, kind of has his own mindset and his own philosophy as a coach. Now, we know that one of the biggest things, what's very kind-hearted about him is that he is big on his players, and mostly his players. Now, with James Franklin, one of the big things that I've been big on is that even if, regardless of just your character and all the rest of this stuff, the biggest thing for me is that what are you doing right now that is gearing you to be a great program? Now, I'm not going to knock him for just the history that he's had at Penn State. Now, remember, he is now in a big-time class of coaches. So, number one, he's the one coach next to another one who has played in 3 big conferences, the SEC, the Big Ten, and now the ACC. And so for James Franklin, the biggest thing in which, his philosophy and the way that he is looking to turn this program around. Now, remember, the ACC, the only thing that you have to deal with is you're dealing with Dabo Swinney, Clemson. You are dealing with Georgia Tech's defense. You're dealing with Mario Cristobal in Miami. And now, of course, Miami sometimes can be a little bit wonky and all that. It can happen. But James Franklin, the biggest thing, and I remember watching Virginia Tech when they had Tyrod Taylor and how this program, even back then when they had Michael Vick, who was a number 1 overall quarterback, the program themselves, basketball, they've been fairly decent, but football, it's kind of taken a little bit of a twist and turn. My one big thing on that I said on the show was I thought that he would have been a perfect fit for Oklahoma State because you're in the Big 12. You got a bunch of other really good coaches. It's mixtures. You got here Deion Sanders at Colorado. You got a bunch of other really good competitive physical programs out there. So I thought he would have worked perfectly. It's not a step back. It's more of just a slight step into building up what you needed to build up, especially if you're playing in the Big 12 or the Big 10. So James Franklin recently was up and on the Pat McAfee show and was discussing about the plan in which to turn this program around. Because remember, college football, it's a madhouse. It's chaos right now. The fact that James Franklin, he signed the papers and now he's up in Virginia Tech. There's talks about, Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss, whether he's going to the pros or some of it he's going to Florida. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But then you also got Brian Kelly, who was fired up in an LSU. So there's all that. There's all that conversation and all that that's been unraveling. And so James Franklin discussed that on the Pat McAfee show in his philosophy he shared in Penn State and what he's going to be bringing to Virginia Tech.
Let's talk about what happened. Obviously, you get let go from Penn State early in the year after a couple game slide that I don't think you or anybody could have ever expected at Penn State. All of a sudden, your name is on the market. You come on a College Game Day, and we basically have a conversation with you. And thank you for doing that still to this day. That was one of the coolest things that has happened on game day, especially with how loud it all was around it. And basically, you implied, hey, I am a football coach. That is what I am. All we are going to do now is take what we learned in trying to win a national championship and go win a national championship somewhere else. Through this entire process, have you reflected more on that particular thing? And what exactly do you think you take from so many years of experience at one place and the spotlight and bring to Virginia Tech, who's hoping to get back there?
Yeah, so I think your question's a great one. And what I would say is, right, it's unique. There hasn't been too many guys that have been a head coach in the SEC, a head coach in the Big Ten, really unusual success at a place like Vanderbilt that hadn't had that type of success before. And then go to Penn State, win a Big Ten championship the first year off of sanctions. The last 3 years, we had more success than anybody in the country, but 4 programs and a few plays away for playing for the national championship. So we're very proud of what we were able to achieve there. And I am forever grateful for that time and experience. So being able to use all those lessons and experiences and now bring it to the ACC. The ACC was my first break at the University of Maryland working for Ralph Friedgen, so I've experienced there. I've been a coach in the NFL with the Green Bay Packers. So just going to take all these experiences that I've been able to have and pour them into my time here at Virginia Tech. So excited about the opportunity. Obviously, we got a ton of work to do. College football's changed. You have the ability to flip your roster a lot faster than when I took over those other 2 programs. And we're excited about the opportunity.
So, yeah, it is going to be quite a challenge for someone like James Franklin, because the fact of the matter is we had Coach Jags, the former Boston College coach, who was 20-8 in his record from 07 and 08. And even he mentions it. He told me up onto the program, I don't think I could ever coach at this speed anymore. And so that's the one thing that college football, the entire plethora of it all is just, it's chaotic. There's no room for excuses at all because you're talking about fan bases, boosters, you're talking about the ADs, like everybody all has their hands in the pot. And that's the one thing that, in college football, it's changed a lot. And it's also one of the things that wore out a lot of other coaches. I mean, you think about Nick Saban retiring from Alabama, and in college football, people are still calling for his name in the college coaching carousel. They're still calling for that. But the fact of the matter is that it's changed so much that now you really have to attack it even faster. It's like you're basically, you're getting your normal espresso shot, but now you're having to take 2 or if not 3 espresso shots now to just really get the kick in, because you don't want to let a player go, especially for recruitment, from the transfer portal, from the NIL. You do not want to lose, even on your pipeline of where you're at. And especially in the East Coast, where you're now having to deal with the SEC a little bit up and on the borderlines until you get all the way up to the Northeast, and where you really have to end up being up onto your A game. So in the ACC, it feels like there could be a fighting chance, and especially for Virginia Tech, they may have an opportunity to be a physical team. So one of the things that I think is interesting is that, so Lane Kiffin, we talked about here, and especially with James Franklin with the hiring up in Virginia Tech. So my big thing is Lane Kiffin, I do think, is meant for college football. If I were to ask you, if you were to ask me, if you think about it, Jake, what would you think about Lane Kiffin right now? I could tell you this. If he leaves and he goes to a pro team, chances are it may not look as pretty, but he's been in this position before. I watched Lane Kiffin when he was with the Raiders. And I watched him in several different spurts when he was everywhere else, until he ended up taking a few college jobs. When he ended up going to FAU, he ended up going to USC. He ended up going like to a ton of places. He's been everywhere. And the thing about Lane Kiffin is that they expect him to be this offensive guru like a Sean McVay or a Lincoln Riley. And I'll be honest with you, he's neither. Like, Lane Kiffin is his own person. And the way that he's going to honestly do business is going to be by him. And Lane Kiffin, I feel like with college, he's relatable to a lot of these youngsters. As a coach, coaching these kids up and honestly making it worthwhile to come to Ole Miss. Now, remember, we are in a position in which with Ole Miss now, they are in the potentiality of going into the college football playoff. But you also got to remember this. There's a lot of other shakeups that are happening. SEC conference championships, Big 10, Big 12, the ACC. There's a lot of these conference championships that you're going to have to play and face. And then you've also got to face up your late rival in your conference, which is also going to be the biggest thing too. But as far as it up and into the pros, and what I felt like what Ole Miss did, and I think this is hilarious, and I also do think it's kind of embarrassing to think this way, that Ole Miss is trying to give some type of ultimatum when it comes to Lane Kiffin. You're only doing this, and Lane Kiffin is benefiting off of it because Brian Kelly got fired at LSU. Billy Napier got fired at Florida. And what does the SEC got? You got Brett Venables at Oklahoma, which I do believe even with John Mateer as that quarterback, Oklahoma will be a very good program for the next few years. Now, you've also got the revival of Alabama with Kalen DeBoer. You still have Kirby Smart at Georgia. So what are your options? And then Ole Miss kind of feeling like a lot like what Indiana did when it came to Kurt Cignetti. That's a different story. Okay, Kurt Cignetti, in my opinion, he's meant for that program. He's a culture coach. If he was to go and pursue an NFL job, he would have done that yesterday. But because the atmosphere in Indiana, and this is a basketball program that is now getting relevant in football. Okay, it was not like that before Kurt Cignetti got there. Okay, all they were was just a welcoming doormat to Ohio State and Oregon and a lot of these other programs. That's all they were. And then when Kurt Cignetti came in, and granted, he talks a lot. He talks big game, but he shows it. Fernando Mendoza, and I was completely wrong about Indiana with the way that they are. That program is set. For Ole Miss, once Lane Kiffin really leaves and goes a different direction, that's now 2, potentially 3 SEC jobs that will be open. LSU, Florida, and Ole Miss. And all you got, if you are an SEC coach, the only ones that are benefiting is Oklahoma, Alabama, and Georgia. Those are the only ones benefiting. South Carolina, forget about it. Because at this point, you're going to be losing Lenore Sellers to the transfer portal. So you're going to have no room for competition up from there. The college football realm has become so chaotic with just the way that the expectations and just the drive now to have to be better and do better is insane to me. So Lane Kiffin, I felt like there was reports in which Florida has been lingering around about the talks about Lane Kiffin. And honestly, I could see Lane Kiffin go to Florida. Why not go to Gainesville? Because Florida's program, you got a young sophomore in DJ Lagway who's got legs, he's got an arm. He just needs structure and direction. And Florida hadn't had that in a long time. And you think that Florida ain't going to be active when Lane Kiffin is up there as the head coach in the transfer portal and in recruitment processes? Yes, they would. Because if you remember, think about it when Urban Meyer left Utah to go to Florida. You remember how absolutely excruciating that was with the pressers. Because I remember watching the Swamp Kings documentary, and it was intense. Gainesville is like that. That's why, like with Lane, he's a more chiller version than Urban Meyer. And I think he can handle press as well. but there also are no room for excuses. There are also no room for disappointments. So that's why I think with Lane Kiffin, I'd rather be in college, because honestly, college and pros, this is what Coach Jags talked about. College and pros have a different type of exceeded expectation. College is more into the tribal effect, because of the number one thing is that you're dealing with your athletic director, you're dealing with your boosters, you're dealing with everything. You're dealing with all of those all at once, and it's 7 days a week. Let's not get that screwed up. And Jim Harbaugh is living the life with the LA Chargers, because the reasoning of it is he's got 4 days, right? He's got a couple days off, and he's coaching with grown men. And so, not to say that Jim Harbaugh wouldn't be perfect for the job. He was perfect for it. Obviously, with the whole entire scandal with Michigan and all of that, it was what it was going to be. But with Lane Kiffin coming into the program, like to the pros, you really think that they're just going to, like, New York's just going to open up with open arms, and then all of a sudden, what happens if it goes sideways? We're all going to say, well, he was meant for college. No kidding. That's how we felt like about Pete Carroll before his third stint when he came into Seattle, and then he changed the culture. And that's how we felt too. Like, Nick Saban was lucky to have Bill Belichick in his corner, because the minute that he ended up coming in and being defensive, and he learned a lot of that philosophy and learned how to take control. He took a lot of that experience up from the NFL, and it's what drove him to, even though being really good at LSU, you're not getting Nick Saban back. Okay, stop the whole crap. And at the same time, Alabama, that's what primed him for that job. So with Lane Kiffin, you go up and you coached up in college, you go up and into the pros with the Raiders, and unfortunately fail because Jamarcus Russell was a bust, and then the Raiders organization is by far dysfunctional for the last 20, 25 years. And then you come back up and into college. You go right up into the FAU. You go right up into the USC. And then you end up in Ole Miss in a very competitive conference in the SEC. And it worked out perfectly. That's why I think even if you go right into Gainesville, you'll be right up at home. You're familiarized with the SEC. But now it's time to expand the talent. That's what they have to do. Because remember, Ole Miss, if you remember, they spent a lot of money in the NIL. Where did that get them? Out of the college football playoff. In Florida, you got a young quarterback. You can build him up just the way that you built up Jackson Dart once he left USC to come to Ole Miss. You got an opportunity to change things there. So I just don't think that the whole pros talk with Lane Kiffin is really going to be all that. And I don't even think it may be worth it. So you can think what you want to think. If he goes to the pros, he goes to the pros. I have no problem with it. But I feel like college is it's his world. It's his atmosphere. And I think he works better with it. Because, again, whether you want to be working up with grown men as a coach, you know that you're going to have to deal with a lot of it. You're going to have to deal with a lot of just contracts. You're going to have to deal with shaping up rosters from top to bottom, offense, defense. But at least in college, you're in a tribal type of atmosphere in college, because it's a lot of these college kids. You're coaching them up for success, because it's their opportunity to be great draft picks. It's also their opportunity to make a roster spot in the NFL. So I think Lane Kiffin, I wouldn't even, if I'm Lane, I'm not even leaving college. That's just me personally. I think he's got a great thing here. I don't see much of what could change in the pros. I just think it may be too much to handle. It'd be too big of a bite for me to even fight with that. Wow, what a great show. We've had a great show this whole week. Shout out to all of our guests this week. Coach Jags, Quinn Jammer, Amobi Okoye, Dominique Curry, and then also with Chuck Fisher. We got a chockload full of more interviews to come your way. Appreciate you guys for rolling with us all week long. Enjoy the game. Bills and Texans tonight. Thursday night football game is going to be a lot of fun, jam-packed. Do not miss out on what Payday Fantasy can get you for your daily fantasy pick'ems. Pick them up quick before this game starts and get paid with Payday Fantasy with Code Snake at 100% deposit matchup of up to $100, and also your free $5 entry when you sign up and download it on your mobile device through Google Play in the App Store. We'll see you guys soon. Next week, of course, is Thanksgiving week, and we're so thankful for all of you guys to have tuned in and subscribed and have followed and have liked on the show, and we continue to give out our best here up onto the show. Appreciate all of you guys. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll see you guys next week on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care, everyone.